10, it's the this one here, it's the Hannock, the H200. It's just basically a sort of a standard size nymph hook, maybe a 1X. If you have a heavily weighted hook, it could be a bit more effective again because we're relying on the fact we want it to sink down deeply. The thread I'm using is 6/0 just because it's a bit thicker and it's going to help me to build up the body a bit quicker, because this pattern is going to rely on the thread actually as a body material. I'm not using a floss of any sort. As for the ribbing on it, you can use all sorts of colors or all sorts of type of ribbing. I'm just going to use a plain silver ribbing for this one here though. The wire, it's just a French tinsel. It's a very fine, oh actually this one here is just a fine silver wire. So once I've got the thread sort of forming a good foundation down the length of the hook, I'm just going to tie in the wire, make sure it's nice and secure, bring it back, and now at this point here I'm going to leave it just sort of slightly into the bend of the hook, and I'm just going to begin building up the body actually of the material itself with the fly tying thread. So again, trying to get a bit of a tapered look. I'm trying to focus a bit more on building the area towards the thorax a little bit thicker than the rest of it, but again trying to leave the end of it a bit tapered. When you put the epoxy on this towards the end, you can kind of build it up a bit more if you like, but once you've sort of got that nice taper on it, leave a bit of room up towards the head, and then just put a half hitch knot in is the way I like to do it. That way it keeps everything from undoing itself. If you're not fishing with if you're not tying with a rotary vise, you can just sort of weave it hand over hand, but in my case I just find the rotary vise is that much quicker for tying and trying to make it effective. So trying to keep your wraps fairly even, which can be a bit of a challenge, especially when there's 40 people watching you. Bring it forward and then lock it down with the tying thread. And then just sort of secure it so it's not going to come undone. You can take and use scissors if you want, but in most cases the tinsel is just quicker, or ribbing, it's just quicker to rip it off. So next thing I do is just sort of cover that wire and move it back, just sort of where the thorax would naturally be on a chironomid. The next material I'm going to use is this is Glow Bright number 5 orange, and that's not the name of the strip joint in Vancouver, but it's a different story. But this one here, it's a floss that again is fluorescent. Usually what I do when I do these patterns is I'll take and I'll cut maybe a 10-inch length, fold it over, and then fold it over again. So I've got basically 4 strands and just roll it in my fingers. If I'm mass tying these patterns, I'll actually sit down and knot them and make one length, so it's going to save me time. But the key is that you don't want to have more material than you have to. So with this one, I'm just going to start on the side closest to me and secure it, and then take my second strand that I've sort of prepared ahead of time and attach it to the other side. And bring it so it's slightly down at the lower part instead of sitting up on the top. Now I'm going to take and wrap and secure all that in place, and I'm going to actually build up the thorax towards the head a bit more, so it's going to have a definite wider area up there. Okay, and now once I've got that down to that point, I'm going to take this material. This is made by Superfly. They call it Superfly wing material with a pearlescence. It's the only reason why I use this is because I can't find any mylar that's the right thickness that I want for this particular pattern. So I take and I pre-cut them ahead of time, put them in the package. Again, if you're mass producing a pattern, it makes more sense to have everything ready so you're not spending time at the vise sitting down and cutting and trimming. So I'll take this material, take the sticky back off it, which is a great feature of it too. Place this on top of the back of the thorax, much like any typical flashback how we would tie them. Again, wrap it, bury it, bring your thread forward, and then pull the flashback over top of the back. The nice thing about the sticky back is that it'll actually stay down to some degree. So once you have this on here, just pull it tight so it's going to sit nice and firm. Give it 2 wraps, hold it in place, and then try to cut it as close as you can without hitting the thread. And I'm going to pull the cheeks up on the one side and just give it a quick spin there. And then on the other side, the same thing. I'm going to pull that forward. And you want to keep it nice and tight so that they stay together and they don't look like individual fibers. But just being that I'm tying away from myself, I'm not seeing what's happening on the other side completely. So just give it two wraps just to secure it. Let the weight of the bobbin hold it down, and then trim it as tight and neatly as you can. In the case, as you can see, I've lifted it, and purposely I've left a bit of orange on the end there, just to show you a bit of a trick that you can do. So I'm going to finish it off with a half hitch, and then just finish it. You can use your tool if you're more comfortable with that. I just find more tools on the bench to be a bit of a pain, so I don't use that. Tighten it down, trim it off. And now the important thing with this pattern is that you find yourself a real good epoxy that you've got a lot of faith in. This is a very popular one throughout the UK, Europe, and in North America. It's a Sally Hansen. Again, good place to find this is in Claire's if you want to embarrass your daughter, as I did the other day. So this epoxy, there's other epoxies, but some of them can be a little bit harder to work with. The nice thing with this, with the brush, you just hold it on there, spin it around, just even it out. Try not to have it too thick at one end. If you do, just brush it and move it around, and try to rotate your brush so that you're getting fresh glue off the other side too. Now this pattern, when I typically tie it, and we don't really have the time frame for this now, but what I'll do is I'll smooth it out, make it all nice and round. I'll leave it to sit upside down for a bit. The glue will dry quite quick. In the case of this halogen ball, I move it in close. I let it dry it up a little bit quicker, turn it over, and kind of bake the other side too. So this it's a lot hotter to work around, but it'll actually speed up the process. So in the case of this pattern here now, you can see the shine on it, but if I keep adding coat after coat, maybe 2 or 3 applications, and give it about maybe anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes in between each coat to kind of cure up, you get a real nice glossy finish. It's very slick, and as I said, the weight of the glue adds a bit to it too. But the key with these patterns is that they'll sink very fast once you have that design where it's very slick and you don't have that resistance in the water. So again, rather than taking more time up, I'll just move on to the next one. But that's basically how you tie the epoxy buzzer. And as I said, if you haven't used these, you simply must. If you want to see how I tie that, I've got it on YouTube too. I've got a demonstration with that one too at the same time.